Welcome back to the Truth Factory. Who really is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez? The mainstream media's narrative is that the new congresswoman is just a hard-working 29-year-old bartender from the Bronx who rose up solely on the power of the people to lead the revolution in Washington and to heroically save us all from global warming and big bad capitalism. But how did this bartender going by the name Sandy go from making drinks to making laws overnight? Well, YouTuber Mr. Reagan removes a smokescreen in a detailed, well-researched video, the brains behind Alexandria, that I'll link in the description. The video reveals that AOC simply applied for and was cast in the role of congresswoman. She was anything but grassroots and was completely astroturfed and endorsed by organizations like the Soros-backed Move On, Black Lives Matter, and Democracy for America. She was also endorsed by Brand New Congress, a progressive Bernie Sanders-backed organization founded by her top aide, Saikat Chakrabarty, that I'll talk about later. And finally, she was endorsed by the Justice Democrats. The Justice Democrats was founded by Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks and Kyle Kulinski, and is now led by Alexandra Rojas. Their mission is to replace and infiltrate the Democratic Party with their own actors and eventually take over the United States government. They do this by recruiting Bernie fans like AOC, and then they mold them into golems to carry out their social justice agenda that is openly outlined on the Justice Democrats Wikipedia page. It includes the Green New Deal, abolishing ICE, funding Planned Parenthood, expanding hate speech laws, making college free, and basically opening up the borders so thousands of undocumented Democrats can pour in and vote for people like Cortez. It was AOC's brother that nominated her to join the Justice Democrats, which can be easily done through their website. This is where she was selected, coached, and then branded into a politician.
Back in 2016, we put out a call for nominations, trying to capture the diversity of background, of experience of the American electorate, the people that aren't currently represented in office. We got over 10,000 nominations. Out of those 10,000 nominations, we found Alexandria.
With fewer than 16,000 votes in the primary election, she has now become one of the most famous freshman members of Congress today. This isn't even a secret. They have admitted this is how it happened and that AOC won because of her help from the Young Turks.
We at the Young Turks helped Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez win.
Yep, that's right.
Guilty as charged.
AOC is not even the only one. In the 2018 midterms, 26 of the 79 candidates endorsed by the Justice Democrats won their primaries, in which 7 won in the general election, including AOC, Ayanna Pressley, Rashida Tlaib, and Ilhan Omar. They took the ideas of Bernie Sanders and then mixed in some identity politics by using women of color as stage props to push their agendas. Now, this certainly isn't the first time that a politician has been endorsed by a PAC or been used as a puppet, but when it happens to this extent, it's important to pull back that curtain and expose the wizard behind it pulling the strings. Now, on the surface, not all of the Justice Democrats' ideas seem bad. For example, most people care about the environment, and if you don't actually read the Green New Deal, you might even think it's a good thing. The problem is the pinko agenda that they sprinkled into the deal when drafting it. And while the deal is supposed to be AOC's claim to fame and the groundwork for her entire political platform, it was not written by her, and it's unlikely that she was even there when it was drafted. The whole thing was created over a weekend by people who have never written laws before, and it shows in this embarrassing, authoritarian, and childish document which pushes creepy socialistic ideologies and social justice much more than it presents any real answers to climate change. And unless we want to become Luddites and go back to the days of horses and buggies, this deal simply isn't feasible anytime in the near future. The crazy parts of the initial draft are in the details, like the dangers of airplanes and farting cows, and how they want to retrofit every single building in America for energy efficiency. It also, for some reason, includes repairing historic oppression and giving money to people who are unwilling to work. I'm not sure how that would affect greenhouse gases, but okay. The whole first draft of the deal was so embarrassing that they had to say that it was uploaded by mistake. AOC is pushing the same doomsday propaganda that Al Gore did.
The world is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change.
We only have 12 years to address climate change, according to a UN climate report. Just like we were all supposed to be wiped off of the face of the earth by rising sea levels if global warming wasn't reversed by the year 2000, according to an older UN climate report. Back in my day, we just called it weather, but you can't justify taxing people for that.
This is the war. This is our World War II.
How do you have another World War II? Is that like a sequel, or is she just too dumb to count to 3? And while she doesn't want you to drive a car, her campaign hypocritically spent almost $30,000 on car services and Uber rides, despite her Queens headquarters being just a 1-minute walk from the subway. How does she expect Americans to live by her policies if she's not even willing to? The estimated cost of the Green New Deal would be about $6.6 trillion a year. And how do they plan to pay for this? They're just going to borrow it from the Federal Reserve, which they believe will just print unlimited money for them at their request. Even though that would exponentially drive up the national debt and rapidly devalue the American dollar to the point where you would need a wheelbarrow full of money to purchase a carbon-neutral hot air balloon ride out of the unmitigated disaster of a socialist nation that they're trying to create. When asked by Jake Tapeworm on CNN how she plans to pay for the estimated $40 trillion it would cost to pay for the rest of her promises, she would just tax the rich, even though that would only account for $2 trillion.
Your platform has called for various new programs, including Medicare for all, housing as a federal right, a federal jobs guarantee, tuition-free public college, canceling all student loan debt. According to nonpartisan and left-leaning studies friendly to your cause, including the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities or the Tax Policy Center, the overall price tag is more than $40 trillion in the next decade. You recently said in an interview that increasing taxes on the very wealthy plus an increased corporate tax rate would make $2 trillion over the next 10 years. So where's the other $38 trillion going to come from?
Well, one of the things that we need to realize when we look at something like Medicare for all would save the American people a very large amount of money. And what we see as well is that these systems are not just pie in the sky.
Could you say it's not pie in the sky, but $40 trillion is quite a bit of money. And the taxes that you talked about raising to pay for this, to pay for your agenda, only count for 2. And we're going by left-leaning analysts.
She wants to promise everything to everyone to look like a hero and to get votes, but she has no idea how to actually pay for it. And the scariest part is that AOC apparently has a degree in economics. But if you speak out against their brand of militant orthodox cultural Marxism, you'll be labeled a Nazi by mobs of pink-haired psychopaths shaming you on social media for not caring about the environment, because the guise of moral superiority is far more important to AOC and the far left than facts and reality. Ultimately, this is why the unrealistic Green New Deal fizzled out in the Senate this week with a 57-0 vote, and why AOC has a 13 overall approval rating according to a recent poll. Womp womp. 6 out of 10 people polled said that she was bad for the Democratic Party. And maybe for this reason, AOC is actually a good thing, because it will drive Republicans out to vote to keep these Justice Democrat whack jobs where they belong, serving margaritas at a taco bar. I mean, she doesn't even know the 3 branches of government.
If we work our butts off to make sure that we take back all 3 chambers of Congress, all 3 chambers of government, the presidency, the Senate, and the House in 2020, we can't start working in 2020.
Think about the fact that every mainstream leading Democratic contender is taking the advice of a freshman congresswoman who 3 weeks ago didn't know the 3 branches of government. I don't know about you guys, but that's pretty scary.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez comes across as incredibly naive, and I genuinely think that she believes that she's the good guy trying to save the world, when in fact the ultimate conclusions of her ideas have led to untold suffering and authoritarian oppression of people throughout history, even fairly recent history. She's gotten to where she is now by being scripted and coached to repeat simplistic rhetoric to the masses like a chirping parrot. This is the real reason why AOC turned down Ben Shapiro's offer to debate. Without a rehearsed script, she just sounds like a moron.
Congresswoman Omar was unfairly singled out.
You know, I think that
Just watch her question the CEO of Wells Fargo.
Mr. Sloan, why was the bank involved in the caging of children and financing the caging of children to begin with?
I don't know how to answer that question because we weren't.
Now, there are plenty of great questions to ask the CEO of Wells Fargo, but instead, she asked this.
Hypothetically, if there was a leak from the Dakota Access Pipeline, why shouldn't Wells Fargo pay for the cleanup of it, since it paid for the construction of the pipeline itself?
Because we don't operate the pipeline.
Now, of course, she comes across as an idiot here, but I'm not sure why that's surprising. These are exactly the type of questions you should expect when you elect a bartender from the Bronx to serve as your congresswoman. It's like getting a mailman to be your surgeon. It's a predictable outcome. It's the same thing you get in Canada when you elect a substitute drama teacher to be your prime minister. You get ISIS. Yes, he literally invited ISIS fighters to live in Canada. AOC and Trudeau are the same in this regard. They're a pretty face that without a script from their handlers have absolutely no idea what they're doing, beyond a vague childish determination to change things and to achieve vague ideas of equality that would put us back into endless breadlines if we let them get that far. AOC and the Justice Democrats talk a big game about getting money out of politics and standing up to dark money behind the scenes. Yet we've just recently seen AOC being hit with an ethics complaint over allegations that she set up a fake congressional email account to send tens of thousands of dollars to her chump boyfriend Riley Roberts. What about the recent blockbuster revelation that two PACs founded by AOC's top guy, Chakrabarty, allegedly forked over $1 million of donations to two of his private companies? This is big-time dark money mafia-type corruption. According to the complaint, Chakrabarty was engaging in an elaborate scheme to avoid proper disclosure of campaign expenditures. In light of these recent financial scandals, her popular dark money video really hasn't aged well, as it actually looks like she's taking notes on how to get away with embezzlement.
And I want to get away with as much bad things as possible, ideally to enrich myself and advance my interest, even if that means putting my interests ahead of the American people. If I want to run a campaign that is entirely funded by corporate political action committees, is there anything that legally prevents me from doing that? No.
Former FEC Commissioner Hans von Spakovsky has called for an investigation, stating, "I've concluded that there is unquestionably more than enough evidence to justify the FEC opening a civil investigation."
Anyone who contributed the maximum amount to her actual campaign organization and then contributed an additional amount to the Political Action Committee, it means that she accepted contributions in excess of the limits. Not only that, but she didn't report those to the FEC.
And AOC has, of course, denied everything.
Do you have any comment on the FEC violation filed against your office?
There is no violation, so there's no violation found.
Do you think that's a sign of you taking dark money?
Oh, no.
But this type of corruption doesn't surprise me at all. Chakrabarty, the Rasputin behind AOC, has been known to wear a t-shirt with former Indian leader Subhash Chandra Bose on it, an ally of Hitler and an ardent admirer of the USSR, who tried to put draconian Soviet policies into action in India. Then there's Zach Exley, who scripted and produced AOC's campaign video. He's an open borders advocate and was once a fellow at George Soros' Open Society.
I'm pitching you on a crazy idea that I want you to help with. And it is to go out and get 500 Elizabeth Warrens and run them together as a slate. Okay? All at once. Okay, so when we have the slate, we're going to spend a few years training. And we're going to learn how to act in front of the TV cameras. I'm not running, by the way, because I'm crazy in the wrong way. And we're going to learn how to talk about our plan.
That's the type of ideology the Justice Democrats actually have. But they sugarcoat it for the American millennial voters by using terms like democratic socialism.
She's a socialist. She wants 10% tax rates. Those are both accurate, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay.
Democratic, though.
Democratic socialist. Democratic socialist.
Very different.
Okay.
Very different.
As if putting the word democratic in front of it makes any difference in the outcome. Don't worry, guys. It's democratic, so you voted to stand in the breadline. And for all of their hatred of capitalism, some savvy business people are certainly making a hefty profit in the free market with AOC's approval. In fact, Netflix recently paid $10 million to producers for the right to distribute Knock Down the House, a documentary about AOC's path to Congress. Don't be fooled by the rocks that she's got. She's still Sandy from the Bronx, right guys? Do you think that the documentary will talk about her 2 latest financial corruption scandals? Unlikely. So in the end, the media's darling AOC is effectively an AstroTurf puppet being used for her naivety, looks, gender, and racial identity to put a softer, more palatable spin on Maoism for the masses. The people and organizations behind AOC who claim to fundamentally reject financial corruption in politics have just been caught embezzling large sums of cash, all while the media largely ignores the allegations. And I'm sure AOC is just the tip of the iceberg for the Justice Democrats and their future plans for American politics. And that is the truth about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez.
AOC sucks! AOC sucks! AOC sucks! AOC sucks! AOC sucks!
You guys, you're not very nice. And neither is what that policy would do to this country.
Thank you so much for watching. I apologize for the huge gap between this and my last video. My husband and I just had our first baby who was sick and in the hospital for the last month, and he just came home today. So it's been a busy and stressful few weeks. So thank you so much for your patience and your support at this time, and have a great night. Meow.